that had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. In all that time, no species had ever truly fought back. Not because they had the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons, though they had both. They won because of something far more simple. They could feel fear. Every commander was born with the gift. They could reach into the minds of their enemies and taste their terror. They could feel hearts beating fast. They could sense the cold sweat on alien skin, and they fed on it. Fear made them stronger. It gave them power. It told them exactly when their enemies were ready to break. High Overlord stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dread. He was old, even by standards. He had conquered 47 species in his long life. He had felt the fear of creatures with 10 legs and creatures with none. He had tasted the terror of beings made of gas and beings made of stone. All of them feared. All of them broke. That was the truth of the universe. Every thinking creature felt fear, and fear always won in the end. Overlord, said one of his officers, "We have detected a ship, unknown design, unknown origin." Turned his massive head. His gray skin caught the light from the "Show me." The image appeared before him. It was a small vessel, barely bigger than one of his patrol craft. The design was strange, curved in places, angular in others. Writing covered its hull in symbols he did not recognize. "It came through the void gate 3 cycles ago," the officer continued. "It has been traveling deeper into Dominion space. We believe it is an exploration vessel." "A new species," said. The words tasted good. It had been many years since they found someone new to conquer. "Have they detected us?" "Yes, Overlord, they have changed course. They are trying to retreat." "Of course they are," smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Send the hunting pack. Surround them. I want them captured alive." 6 warships moved through the darkness of space. They were fast and deadly, designed to chase down fleeing prey. Within hours, they had surrounded the small alien vessel. There was nowhere left to run. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Commander watched the enemy ships close in. She was a woman of 42 years, with short black hair and calm dark eyes. She had served in Earth's space fleet for 20 years. She had seen combat. She had faced death, but she had never seen anything like this. 6 ships, said Lieutenant from his tactical station. He was younger than, but his voice was steady. All of them bigger than us, all of them armed. "I can count," Lieutenant said, but there was no anger in her voice, just focus. "Commander," called Ensign from communications. She was the youngest on the bridge, just 23. Her hands were shaking slightly as she worked her console. "They are sending a message, audio only." "Let me hear it." The voice that came through the speakers was deep and cold. It spoke in perfect Korean, which should have been impossible. "Unknown vessel. You have entered the territory of the Dominion. You will power down your engines. You will lower your shields. You will prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." The bridge was silent, could feel the fear in the room. She felt it in herself too. Her heart was beating harder. Her muscles were tight. But she had learned long ago that fear was not the end. Fear was just the beginning. She said, "Open a channel to all hands." "Channel open, Commander." Stood straight. "All hands, this is the Commander. We have made first contact with an alien species. They do not seem friendly, I will not lie to you. Our situation is bad, but we are the crew of the horizon's edge. We trained for moments like this. We will face whatever comes with courage and with honor. Battle stations." Throughout the ship, men and women moved. They checked weapons. They sealed doors. They prepared for the worst. Aboard the Eternal Dread reached out with his mind. He wanted to taste the fear of these new creatures. He wanted to feel them tremble. He expected the usual sensation. Cold terror, rising panic, the desperate animal need to flee. He found fear. Yes, they were afraid. He could feel their racing hearts and sweating palms. He could sense the young one at the communication station, almost frozen with fright. But something was wrong. The fear was there, but it was not spreading. It was not growing. Instead, it seemed to be changing into something else, something he had never felt before. The commander of the alien ship. He focused on her. She was definitely afraid, he could taste it clearly, but her fear was not making her weak. It was making her sharp, alert, ready. Her mind was not running from the terror, it was using it. Pulled back his consciousness. For the first time in centuries, he felt uncertain. Overlord, his officer was watching him. What do you sense? I am not sure, admitted. The words felt strange in his mouth. He was never unsure. They feel fear, but they do not break. All creatures break, Overlord. Yes, said slowly, they do, but he was no longer certain this was true. Overlord, the hunting pack is ready to board. Made his decision. Tell them to proceed, but I want these creatures captured alive, all of them. I want to study them. As you command. The boarding craft launched from the warships. They moved toward the human vessel like predators closing in on prey. On the horizon's edge, watched them come. Her hands were steady on the arms of her command chair. She was afraid. Of course she was afraid. Only fools felt no fear in the face of death. But fear had never stopped her before. It would not stop her now. She said, prepare defensive measures. We may not be able to win, but we can make them remember us. Yes, Commander. Fingers moved across his console, weapons charging. Looked at her captain with wide eyes. Commander, should we not surrender? They said they would destroy us. Turned to the young woman. They might destroy us anyway, Ensign. But if we surrender without fighting, we tell them that humans are weak, that we break easily. I do not know what will happen next, but I know this. We will face it standing. She turned back to the boarding craft were almost at their hull. All hands said, battle stations, let us show them what we are made of. The first breaching pod hit their hull with a loud crash. The fight for the horizon's edge had begun. And somewhere in his flagship, High Overlord felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Curiosity. These creatures were afraid, but they were not breaking, and needed to know why. The battle for the horizon's edge lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fighting in narrow corridors. 6 hours of humans standing against creatures twice their size. In the end, they always won, but they paid a price they had not expected. 12 soldiers died taking the small human ship. 12. In 12,000 years of conquest, had never lost more than 2 soldiers capturing a vessel this size. Most species surrendered before a single shot was fired. Their fear made them weak, made them give up. The humans did not give up. Walked through the corridors of the captured ship. Bodies lay on the ground. More were human, but even the dead humans looked wrong to him. Their faces were not twisted with the terror he expected. Some looked peaceful, some looked angry. One young male had died with his hands around the throat of a warrior 3 times his weight. They fought like animals, said Commander, who walked beside, was the Dominion's greatest interrogator. He had broken the minds of 1,000 species. No discipline, no strategy, just rage. No, said quietly, not rage, something else. He stopped beside the body of a human female. She had died defending a door. Behind that door they had found 3 wounded crew members she had been protecting. She had known she could not win. She had fought anyway. Bring the survivors to the eternal dread, ordered. I want them separated. Put each one in an isolation chamber. As you command, Overlord. There were 17 survivors. They moved them to the flagship in chains. Commander walked with her head high, even though her arm was broken and blood ran down her face. She looked at her captors with dark, steady eyes, watched her carefully. She was still afraid, he could feel it, but her fear was locked away somewhere deep inside her. It was not controlling her, she was controlling it. This should have been impossible. The isolation chambers were designed to amplify fear. They were dark and cold. Strange sounds played through hidden speakers. The walls seemed to move. Every creature that had ever captured broke within hours of being placed inside. The humans did not break. Interrogator started with Ensign. She was young. She was clearly the most afraid. She should have been the easiest to break. Stood before her in the dark chamber. His mind reached out, finding her fear and pushing it higher. He showed her images of death. He filled her thoughts with visions of her being tortured. He made her feel alone, completely alone. Screamed, she cried. She begged him to stop. But she did not give him what he wanted. "Where is your?" demanded. His voice shook, tears ran down her cheeks. "I will not tell you. You are afraid, I can feel your terror. Why do you resist?" "Because I am more than my fear." Did not understand. He pushed harder. He showed her the death of her family. He made her feel pain in every part of her body. She screamed until her voice gave out. But she did not break. Hours passed, moved from prisoner to prisoner. Each one was afraid. Each one suffered in the darkness. But not one of them gave him useful information. Not one of them begged for mercy in exchange for secrets. "This is impossible," told. "I have broken creatures made of pure thought. I have shattered minds older than our civilization. These humans are primitive, weak. They should have broken before I even began." Yet they did not, observed. "Their fear is real. I am not imagining it. They are terrified. But somehow they function despite the terror. They think clearly. They resist." Shook his massive head. "I do not understand." Was quiet for a long moment. "Let me speak to their commander." Sat in her isolation chamber. The darkness pressed against her from all sides. Strange whispers filled the air. Every few minutes, the temperature would drop or rise sharply. She knew these were tricks designed to break her mind. She had trained for situations like this. But training and reality were different things. She was afraid, more afraid than she had ever been in her life. She missed her ship. She missed her crew. She did not know if any of them were still alive. The whispers told her they were dead. The whispers told her she was alone. She knew the whispers were lies, but part of her believed them anyway. The door opened. Light flooded in, blinding her. When her vision cleared, she saw the massive form of High Overlord standing before her. "Commander," he said, his voice was surprisingly calm. "I hope you will forgive the conditions. They are standard for new subjects." Looked up at him. She did not speak. "Your crew is alive," continued. "All 17 survivors. None of them have been permanently harmed, though I cannot promise that will continue if you do not cooperate." "What do you want?" asked. Her voice was rough from screaming. "I want to understand." Moved closer. His gray face showed an expression that might have been curiosity. "You are afraid. I can feel it clearly. Your heart is racing. Your body is producing chemicals of stress. Yet you sit here and speak to me as if we were equals. How?" Was quiet for a moment, then she laughed. It was a small, tired sound. "You have never met a creature like us before, have you? I have conquered hundreds of species. And all of them broke when they felt fear. Yes, that is the nature of fear. It is the great weakness of all thinking minds." Shook her head slowly. "Fear is not a weakness, not for humans. For us, fear is a tool." Leaned forward. "Explain." "We come from a dangerous world," said. "Everything on our planet wanted to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the water. We evolved in constant danger. We felt fear every moment of every day." "Then how did you survive?" "We learned to use our fear. We learned that being afraid did not mean we had to run or freeze. We could feel the fear and still move, still think, still fight." Met his eyes. "Fear is what kept us alive. It made us careful. It made us prepare. It made us strong." Was silent. He had lived for thousands of years. He had conquered half a galaxy, but he had never heard anyone speak about fear this way. He said slowly, "fear is the weapon we use against others. We have bred it out of our own species over many generations." "Then you do not understand it," said. You use fear from the outside. You do not know what it means to carry it inside you and still walk forward. That is what makes us human. We are always afraid, and we are always brave. Stood very still. Something was changing inside him. A belief he had held for his entire life was starting to crack. Your species is dangerous, he said at last. We can be, agreed. But we do not want war. We were explorers. We came in peace. Your people attacked us. That is what we do. We conquer. Then perhaps it is time to change. Looked at this small, wounded creature who sat in chains before him. She was afraid. He could feel it. But she was also speaking to him as if she had already won. And in a way he realized she had. I will think on what you have said, told her. He turned to leave. Overlord called after him. He stopped. There are more of us, many more, and they will come looking for us. Did not answer. He walked out of the chamber and sealed the door behind him. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Dominion faced something they did not know how to fight. An enemy who was afraid but would not break. A species that had turned fear itself into a source of strength. And they were coming. Word spread through the Dominion like fire through dry grass. A new species had been found. Creatures who felt fear but did not break. The story passed from ship to ship, from world to world, and it did not just reach ears. The slave species heard it too. For 12,000 years, the conquered peoples of the Dominion had lived in terror. They worked in the mines. They built the ships. They served their masters. They did this because they were afraid. They had taught them that fear meant obedience. Fear meant surrender. There was no other way. But now there were whispers of another way. On the mining world of, a small gray creature named listened to the stories. He was one of the first species they had conquered. His people had served for so long that they had forgotten what freedom meant. They say the new creatures fought back, whispered another worker beside him. They say they could not break them. Impossible, said, but something stirred in his chest, something he had not felt in years. Hope. Far away on the eternal dread, Lieutenant was planning something dangerous. During the chaos of capture, he and 3 other crew members had escaped into the maintenance tunnels of the human ship. They had searched for them but gave up after a few hours. They were more interested in the prisoners they already had. Now and his small team hid in the darkness between the walls. They had no weapons. They had little food. But they had something more important. The ship's communication system is still working, said Ensign, the team's engineer. She was thin and tired, but her eyes were bright. They disabled the main controls, but I can access the backup systems from here. Can we send a message to Earth? Asked. No, not enough power, but I can broadcast on local frequencies. Anyone in this sector will hear us. Thought carefully. A message to other ships would be useless. They would just hunt his team down. But what about the slave species? What about the conquered peoples who worked on vessels? Can we broadcast on multiple channels, reach as many ships as possible? Nodded, yes, but I will need time to set it up, and they might detect the signal. Do it, said. We may not get another chance. On the flagship, found himself unable to sleep. The human commander's words echoed in his mind. We learned to use our fear. Fear is what kept us alive. He walked through the corridors of his ship, passing soldiers who bowed their heads in respect. He had led these warriors for centuries. He had never doubted their purpose. The Dominion conquered because conquest was right. The weak served the strong. This was the natural order. But what if the humans were not weak? He found himself at the door of the ship's great library. Inside, an old sat surrounded by ancient texts. His name was, and he was a philosopher, one of the few who still asked questions instead of giving orders. Overlord said, rising slowly, "This is unexpected. I need your wisdom, old one." Gestured to a seat. "Then sit, tell me what troubles you." Sat for a long moment. He was silent. Then he spoke. "Have you heard of the new species, the ones we captured?" The humans, yes, the stories are spreading quickly. They are strange. I have conquered countless creatures. I have felt their fear and used it to break them. But these humans, they feel fear and it makes them stronger. They carry terror in their hearts and still they fight. How is this possible? Was quiet for a while. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. Perhaps, Overlord, we have misunderstood the nature of fear. What do you mean? For 12,000 years, we have seen fear as a weapon, a tool to control others. We removed it from our own species because we thought it was weakness. But what if fear serves a purpose? What if it is meant to exist alongside courage, not instead of it? Shook his head. You speak in riddles. I speak in truths you do not wish to hear, leaned forward. The humans are not strong despite their fear, they are strong because of it. Their fear tells them when danger is real. It keeps them alert. It makes them prepare. And when they choose to act despite that fear, their actions have weight, meaning they call this courage. We have courage, protested. We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. No, Overlord, we have confidence. We have certainty. We have never faced an enemy that truly threatened us. How can we be brave when we have never been afraid? The words struck like a physical blow. He sat in silence, feeling something cold spreading through his chest. Was this what the humans felt? Was this fear? If so, he understood now why they called it a tool. The sensation was unpleasant, but it was also sharpening his thoughts, making him see things more clearly. The Dominion is built on fear, said slowly. If the slaves learn, they do not have to be afraid. Then the Dominion falls, finished. Yes, I believe you understand now. At that moment, a signal reached the Eternal Dread. It came from the captured human ship's message, broadcasting on every frequency. To all who hear this, his voice said, we are humans. We come from a small world called Earth. They captured us because they thought we would break. They thought our fear would make us surrender. They were wrong. On 100 ships, slaves stopped their work and listened. We are afraid. We have always been afraid. Our world was dangerous from the beginning, but we learned something important. Fear does not have to control you. You can feel terror in your heart and still choose to stand. You can shake with fright and still say no. The felt tears running down his gray face. He had never heard anyone speak like this. They have ruled through fear for 12,000 years. They have made you believe that fear means weakness, that fear means surrender. But we are living proof that this is a lie. Fear is just a feeling. What you do with that feeling is up to you. The message continued for several more minutes. It spoke of hope. It spoke of resistance. It spoke of a future where the conquered peoples of the galaxy could stand beside humans as equals. When it ended, nothing happened. The slaves went back to their work. The officers noted the transmission and began hunting for its source. But something had changed. On looked at the guards watching over him. He was still afraid of them. He would probably always be afraid of them. But for the first time, he realized that being afraid and being helpless were not the same thing. On the Eternal Dread, felt the shift in the air. Something new was moving through the Dominion, something that could not be controlled with terror or crushed with force. And far away, on the edge of space, a fleet of human ships appeared through the void gate. Ambassador stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the stars ahead. This is the human diplomatic fleet, she broadcast on all channels. Her voice was calm and clear. We are here for our people. We do not wish for war, but we will not leave without them. Received the message on his command deck. More humans, more creatures who carried fear like a companion instead of a chain. He looked at the tactical display. He had enough ships to destroy the human fleet easily. That was what the Dominion would do. That was what he had always done. But words echoed in his mind. How can we be brave when we have never been afraid? For the first time in his long life, did not know what to do. And perhaps he realized that uncertainty was exactly what he needed to feel. The old ways were cracking. A new galaxy was being born, and the Dominion would never be the same. The human diplomatic fleet held position at the edge of space, 12 ships in total, small by Dominion standards. The armada facing them had over 200 vessels. Ambassador stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Dawn of Understanding. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from years of difficult negotiations. She had made peace between warring nations on Earth. She had resolved conflicts that others said could never end, but she had never faced anything like this. "Ambassador," said Captain beside her, "they are not responding to our messages." "Keep trying," said. "They will talk eventually. They are curious about us. That curiosity will bring them to the table. And if they decide to destroy us instead?" Looked at him calmly. "Then we die with dignity, but I do not think they will, not yet." On the Eternal Dread watched the human fleet through his officers waited for orders. They expected him to give the command to attack. That was what they had always done. That was what the Dominion did. But hesitated. He thought of Commander in her cell. He thought of words about courage and fear. He thought of the message that had spread through the slave populations. Something was changing in the galaxy. He could feel it in his bones. "Overlord," said one of his officers, "your orders." "Bring Commander to the observation deck," said. "I want her to see this." The officer looked confused but obeyed. Minutes later, stood beside, still in chains but standing straight. She looked at the human fleet through the massive windows. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I trained with her daughter." "They came for you," observed. "We do not leave our people behind, even when the cost is death." Turned to look at him. "Especially then, if we abandon our people when things became dangerous, what would we be? Survival without loyalty is not worth having." Considered this. They had no such concept. When soldiers were captured, they were expected to die rather than reveal information. If they could not die, they were forgotten. The Dominion did not rescue the weak. "Your ambassador wants to negotiate," he said. "Of course, we do not want war. She must know we could destroy her fleet in minutes." "She knows, she came anyway," smiled slightly. "That is what courage looks like, Overlord, walking into danger because the cause is worth the risk." A message came through the communication system. The Supreme Matriarch was awakening. This news sent a chill through every on the ship. The Matriarch was ancient beyond counting. She had created the Dominion itself. She slept for centuries at a time, waking only when something threatened her empire. The arrival of the humans had been enough to disturb her slumber. "The Matriarch will want the humans destroyed," said quietly. "Will you obey?" asked. Did not answer. The Supreme Matriarch arrived on the Eternal Dread within hours. Her ship was massive, covered in ancient symbols and surrounded by a fleet of her personal guards. When she walked onto's command deck, every present fell to their knees. She was smaller than had expected. Age had shrunk her body, but her eyes burned with cold fire and her mind reached out like a vast dark ocean, felt her presence pressing against his thoughts. "Show me these humans," she commanded. Gestured to the human fleet still held position. They had not moved closer. They had not retreated. "Insignificant," the Matriarch said. "Why have you not destroyed them?" "I believed, Supreme One, that study might be valuable. They are unlike any species we have encountered." "I have felt them." The Matriarch's voice was cold. "They carry fear but do not break. This makes them dangerous. Dangerous things must be eliminated." "With respect, Supreme One, they might also be useful. Their resistance to fear could be studied, perhaps even replicated." The Matriarch turned her ancient eyes on. "You have spoken to their leader," the female called. "Yes." "She has planted doubt in your mind. I can see it growing like a disease." The Matriarch stepped closer. "You question the Dominion, you question conquest, you question fear itself." said nothing. Denial would be useless. The matriarch could see into his thoughts. The Dominion has ruled for 12,000 years, she continued. We have brought order to chaos, peace through control. You would risk all of this because some small creature spoke pretty words to you. I would ask if there might be another way, said carefully. There is no other way. There is only strength and weakness, victory and defeat. The humans will learn this lesson or they will die. She turned to the communication officer. Open a channel to the human fleet. Ambassador's face appeared on the. She looked calm, professional, but could feel her fear beneath the surface. It was strong, almost overwhelming, yet her voice did not shake when she spoke. I am ambassador of the Human Alliance. We come in peace. We ask only for the return of our people. I am the supreme matriarch of the Dominion, the ancient creature replied. You will surrender your fleet. You will submit to our rule. You will become subjects of the Dominion. This is not a negotiation. This is your only choice. Was quiet for a moment, then she spoke. No. The word hung in the air, simple, clear, final. No, the matriarch's voice was dangerous. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We did not come here to become slaves. Took a breath. I am afraid, matriarch. I can feel my heart pounding. My hands want to shake. I know your ships could destroy us in minutes, but fear does not change what is right. We came for our people. We will not leave without them. The matriarch made a gesture. One of her escort ships fired. A human vessel on the edge of the fleet exploded in a ball of fire. 73 people died in an instant. On the dawn of understanding, closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet with tears, but her voice remained steady. You have shown us your power. We already knew you had it. That does not change our answer. I will destroy your entire fleet. Then you will have to destroy us, but more will come, and more after that. You cannot kill an idea, matriarch. You cannot conquer hope. The slaves who serve you are already hearing our message. They are learning that fear does not have to mean surrender. The matriarch hissed. She turned to destroy them, all of them now. Looked at his command console. His fleet was ready. One word from him and the human ships would become dust. He thought of, still standing at the observation windows. He thought of, asking if courage could exist without fear. He thought of the slave species, listening to messages of hope. And he thought of himself, of the creature he had been for thousands of years, a conqueror, a destroyer, a servant of the Dominion. Was that all he could be? Overlord, the matriarch growled, I gave you an order. His hands hovered over the controls. The entire bridge was silent. Every eye was on him. And then slowly he stepped back. No, he said. The word seemed to echo through the ship, through the fleet, through the entire Dominion. The matriarch stared at him. What did you say? I said no, turned to face her. For 12,000 years we have conquered through fear. We have built an empire on terror, but these humans have shown me something. Fear does not have to be a weapon. It does not have to be a chain. It can be a companion, a teacher, a source of strength. You are a traitor. Perhaps, or perhaps I am the first in 12,000 years to feel true courage. He stood straight. I will not destroy the humans. I will not kill hope. If that makes me a traitor, then so be it. The bridge erupted into chaos. Guards moved toward, officers shouted. The matriarch screamed orders. But something else was happening too. On other ships throughout the fleet, commanders who had also heard his message were making their own decisions. Some sided with the matriarch, others did not. And on 100 slave worlds, beings who had served in terror for thousands of years looked up at the stars and felt something new stirring in their hearts. The Dominion was breaking apart. And from the ashes, something new was being born. The Civil War lasted 3 months. Ships that had served together for centuries now fired upon each other. Commanders who had been brothers in conquest became enemies overnight. The matriarch's loyalists fought against those who had heard its words and found something new awakening inside them. In the end, neither side truly won. The matriarch still controlled the core worlds of the Dominion, but her power was broken. Half of her fleet had defected. Dozens of slave species had risen up in rebellion. The empire that had stood for 12,000 years was crumbling. Stood at the head of the rebel fleet. He had never wanted to be a leader of this kind. He had spent his life following orders, conquering worlds, serving the Dominion. Now he was fighting against everything he had once believed in. And he was afraid. The sensation was still strange to him. The cold tightness in his chest, the racing of his heart, the voice in his mind that whispered of failure and death. But he was learning to use it just as had described. The fear kept him alert. It made him think carefully. It reminded him that his choices had weight. Commander stood beside him on the bridge of his new flagship. She was no longer a prisoner. She was an ally, a friend, even though both of them found this idea strange. "Ambassador has arrived," reported. "She is ready to begin the peace talks." "The matriarch will not negotiate," said. "She would rather die than accept change." "Then she may get her wish, but we must try." The negotiations took place on a neutral station at the edge of Dominion space. Represented the human alliance. Spoke for the rebel. Representatives from 12 freed slave species were also present, including the who had become a leader among his people. The matriarch sent a holographic image. She refused to attend in person. "You ask for peace," she said, her ancient voice filled with contempt. "After you have torn my empire apart, after you have freed creatures who were meant to serve, what peace can there be after such betrayal?" Responded calmly, "We ask for a new beginning, not peace through conquest, peace through cooperation." Cooperation, the matriarch spat the word. Weakness, submission, the strong do not cooperate with the weak. "Then perhaps it is time to change what strength means," said. His voice was small, but he did not look away from the matriarch's image. "I was a slave for my entire life. I was afraid every day. But the humans showed me that fear is not the same as helplessness. I choose to stand here, speaking to you as an equal, not because I am no longer afraid. I am terrified, but I will not let terror control me anymore." The matriarch's eyes flickered. For a moment, something crossed her ancient face. Confusion, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. "You cannot kill what has begun," told her. "The slaves have heard the message. They know now that fear can be overcome. You can crush this rebellion, you can destroy these ships, you can even kill me. But the idea will survive, it will spread, it will grow." "Then I will burn it out," the matriarch hissed. "I will destroy every world that shows resistance. I will kill every creature that whispers of hope." "And in doing so you will destroy the Dominion itself," said. "Your empire is built on labor, on resources, on the work of billions of beings. If you kill them all, what will you rule? Empty worlds, dead stars. You need them more than they need you." The matriarch was silent for a long moment. Her image flickered. "What do you propose?" she finally asked. Leaned forward. "A council, representatives from every species, human and all the others. Decisions made together, trade instead of tribute, partnership instead of slavery." "And if I refuse?" "Then the war continues, and eventually you will fall. Not today, perhaps not for many years, but you will fall. Fear can only hold an empire together for so long. When people find their courage, nothing can stop them." The negotiations continued for weeks. There were arguments, there were threats. More than once they nearly collapsed entirely, but slowly, painfully, an agreement began to form. The Galactic Council was born. It was not perfect. The matriarch retained control of the core worlds. Many slaves were still not free. Old hatreds ran deep, and they would not disappear overnight. But it was a beginning. 1 year later, Commander stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge once more. The ship had been rebuilt, larger and better than before. It was now part of a joint exploration fleet, carrying both human and crew members. Stood beside her. He had traded his military rank for the title of ambassador. He still found diplomacy strange and frustrating, but he was learning. "We have reached the target system," reported. "Sensors are detecting several habitable worlds." "Unknown species?" asked. "Possibly. We are receiving faint signals from the third planet." Looked at another new species, another first contact. Once he would have seen only potential conquests. Now he saw something different. "What do you feel?" asked him. Considered the question. His hearts were beating faster. There was tightness in his chest. The old whispers of danger echoed in his mind. "Fear," he admitted. Smiled. "Good. That means you are ready." They walked together toward the shuttle bay, where a diplomatic team waited to make first contact. The team included humans and, a year ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. "You know," said as they walked, "when I first captured your ship, I thought humans were simply strange. A curiosity. I did not understand how a species so small and weak could have survived on such a dangerous world. And now I understand. You survived because you were never truly weak. Your fear made you prepare. It made you learn. It made you adapt. And when you could not run from danger, you faced it. That is not weakness. That is something the never had." Stopped walking, she turned to face him. "The can learn it you already have." "I am not sure the matriarch would agree." "The matriarch is old. Her time is ending. Yours is just beginning." They continued toward the shuttle. The diplomatic team was ready. The new world waited. Behind them, through the stars stretched out forever. Once those stars had belonged to the Dominion. They had been markers of conquest, signs of power, symbols of fear. Now they were something else. They were possibilities, connections, bridges between species that had once been enemies. They had dominated the stars without fear for 12,000 years. They had believed that fear was the ultimate weakness, that creatures who felt terror were meant to be conquered. Then humanity arrived. Small, fragile, afraid of everything. And in their fear they found something they had never known. True courage, true strength, true hope. The galaxy would never be the same. As the shuttle launched toward the new world, looked at, "Your people have a saying, something about fear and courage." "Courage is not the absence of fear," said. "It is choosing to act despite fear." Nodded slowly. "I think I finally understand." The shuttle descended through clouds toward an unknown world. Inside, beings who had once been enemies sat together as friends. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the future was not written in fear. It was written in hope.